Hello everyone, I am David Vasquez. Thank you for tuning in again. In today's video, we wanted to do a fun little experiment and we asked ChatGPT what are the top 5 questions sellers in Miami are asking ChatGPT. Question number 1, is now a good time to sell and how is the market? This is the question I get asked the most by almost everyone that I speak to. How is the market? What do you see happening? And the answer is not one size fits all. So there's 3 different factors when analyzing the market in Miami. You gotta look at the area, you gotta look at the type of property, and you gotta look at the price range. Let's start with area, which is the easiest part to start in. Some parts in Miami are still doing very well. There's low inventory, demand is still increasing, pushing prices up. Other parts of Miami have been maybe overbuilt, could be a condo area downtown, could be further out in Homestead, where more inventory has increased the supply and buyer demand has not caught up. Also affordability in these lower, let's say more affordable housing, 500,000-600,000. The second tier is price range. Let's say Pinecrest, for example. Pinecrest, you could buy $2 million home, you could buy a $5 million home, you could buy a $10-15 million home. In the $1 to $5 million price point of Pinecrest homes, you have an average days of market of 45 days, month and a half, pretty high demand. Properties usually sell rather quickly. Now, when you go to 7 million, 10 million plus, properties start to sit a lot longer in the market. You're looking at 5-6 months of days on market, a much harder sale because there's more inventory of new developments being built in Pinecrest and not the buyer demand that's looking for the $10 to $12 million product. Also, to kind of caveat that, the $10 to $12 million product is usually new development. If it's a spec new development home, those even tend to take longer to sell, whereas a custom finish home, maybe by an end user or a developer that really did high-end finishes, those will do well, but even then, it still is a longer sales process than that $1 to $5 million point in price point. So, price point could be a differentiator factor of how the market's doing within one area, within the same product. Price point could be the difference. The last factor that determines of how the market is doing and whether it's a good time to sell is what type of property do you own? Do you own a condo? Do you own a single family home? If you own a single family home, for the most part, it's a stable market. Again, some parts, some areas, different price points, could be stronger than others. If you own a condo, very similar. Condos, overall, there's more inventory because it's easier to build new inventory of condos. In a 1-acre site in Brick or downtown, you could add 500 new units. You can't add 500 new homes in Coral Gables or Coconut Grove or Pinecrest. There's just not enough land, right? So inventory for condos is very easily increased, which has led to some fluctuations on whether it is or is not a good time to sell. That being said, there are some buildings, some areas of condos that have done extremely well. For example, south of 5th Miami Beach. There has not been any new inventory to south of 5th Miami Beach. The closest one is 5 Park, just north of 5th Street. But that being said, 5 Park is only made of 250 units. One building that has been added in, let's say, the South Beach area over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Not much inventory being added. Buildings like Icon, South Beach, Murano Grande, South Beach, Portofino Tower, Continuum, Apogee. These buildings still do extremely well because the lack of inventory. It basically acts like a single family home neighborhood where new inventory has not been introduced to the market. So these buildings, we still see demand for these buildings. We still see a price appreciation on an annual basis. Just to give you an example, we just listed a 2-bedroom at Murano Grande 2 weeks ago, and within the first week we received a really good offer and now we're in contract. Very unlikely to see that in 80% of the condo buildings throughout Miami. Coconut Grove, where we're sitting here today. The condo market in Coconut Grove is very similar to the south of 5th Miami Beach condo market. There's only a handful of buildings, there's not much inventory that has been added over the last 5 years. There's a few in the pipeline, but even then, within all 5 new developments going on in Coconut Grove right now, we're only gonna see about 350 new units introduced to the market over the next 3 years. A very small amount compared to what we could see like in Sunny Isles, in downtown Miami, and in Brickell. So this keeps the market's inventory very low, keeps the demand high, which ultimately leads to a very strong market for whether you're an owner, or you're a potential buyer and investor and you want to buy in a healthy market. Question number 2 from ChatGPT. How much is my home worth and how should I price it? Pricing is one of the most important steps in properly selling your home. You don't want to be the property that's overpriced by 15-20% and you're sitting on the market and a month goes by and you have very little showings, 2 months go by, you have very little showings. What happens is you now become that stale listing. So then eventually you're gonna reduce the price and then the lowball offer is gonna come in because you've been on the market for 4, 5, 6 months. What you wanna do is price it as close to the true value of the home as possible. How do you get a true value? A broker, an appraiser come in, they'll break down the comps for you, the comparable sales, they'll look at similar properties that have sold, and they should get a pretty good indication based on the comparable sales and the condition and size of your home of what more or less it should be sold for. You really don't want to be list more than 5% of above what that home is worth. Traditionally, from list price to sales price, we see about a 5% reduction. So you don't want to be more than 5%. Ideally, you list right at where you need to be, because what happens? If you list the property truly where the value is, you're gonna get a ton of activity right from the beginning of the listing. You'll have multiple offers. Buyers will see this activity. They'll see that there's a little bit of a frenzy going on. So then a buyer's gonna put their best foot forward. They're gonna submit the strongest offer with the best terms. And if you have multiple offers, a seller now has leverage to increase the offer, negotiate better terms, because you're dealing with 3, 4, 5, 6 offers. If you're sitting in the market for 6 months and a buyer comes along because you're overpriced, they're gonna lowball your offer, they're gonna give you terrible terms, and that's the only buyer you're negotiating with, so seller has no leverage at all. So really listing the list price exactly where it needs to be to sell is so important. And if you think you're under listing, let's say the property is worth $1 million and you want to sell it for 9, or let's say you think your property is worth $1 million, right? And we list it for $975. If we underlist, the market will tell us that we underlisted, and we will get above asking. We will get $1,050,000. We will get $1,075,000, maybe even 1.1. The market at the end of the day will dictate if you have underlisted the property. So I'm never concerned of slightly underlisting a property by a few $1,000s, because the market will tell me. Question number 3 from ChatGPT. What do I need to do to prepare or improve my home before listing? So some simple things that you could do prior to listing your home that will go a long way. Decluttering, number 1. The way we live is not the way we want to show a home. We want to show it like a model home, a stage home. If you walk into a new construction condo residence, they don't have stuff everywhere, magazines, books. They have everything beautifully, perfectly organized. That's how we want to show our home to stage for top dollar. You want to do a fresh coat of paint, interior, exterior. If you have maybe a very particular, let's say like a purple or blue, we want very neutral tone colors, taupe and beiges. These usually do very well. We want to freshen up the landscaping. If some of the landscaping maybe hasn't been paid attention to lately, maybe you need to plant some new sod, maybe we need to put some new mulch. This is very important because it's the first thing people see when they arrive at the property is the exterior. Lastly would be pressure washing, also very important in the exterior. If you need to pressure wash the roof, sidewalks, driveway, this is the first impression that people see. If you want to go further into detail, let's say you have a home, maybe it's been a little bit neglected, maybe it's a rental property, you haven't been living in it, or maybe you just want to do this just to be extra cautious. You could do a pre-listing inspection. A pre-listing inspection, you hire an inspector, they go in, they basically check for everything that the naked eye won't be able to see. They'll look for roof leaks, plumbing issues, electrical issues. If you find these issues prior to a buyer finding these issues, it won't scare them away, and these problems will be resolved before it even gets to the buyer. So for example, I want to hire an inspector to come in, do a pre-inspection to my listing. He finds that there is a little small leak in my attic that I would have never found because I'm not in my attic. So what do? Call my roofer, get the roof patched, everything's sealed, everything's done properly, up to code. So now when if we're in contract and a buyer is doing their inspections, there's no active leak. This could scare some buyers, this could deter some buyers, or this even worse, if you're in contract during the inspection period, they could ask for a large credit to fix this roof, or maybe you paid for a very small credit, just a very small repair just to have it fixed. So if it's a home that you think is an older home or you haven't paid much attention to, a pre-listing inspection could go a long way and save you a lot of money in the long run. Number 4 question from ChatGPT. What are the closing costs and fees associated with selling my home? If you're selling a home for $3 million, you're not gonna walk away with $3 million cash in your hand. There are closing costs associated with any transaction. You have to pay broker fees, you have to pay seller fees, you have to pay closing fees. What does that look like? So broker fees. Broker fees are completely negotiable. It could be 0% or it could be 10%. But on average here in Miami, South Florida, we see typical broker fees anywhere between 5 and 6%. This is typically divided between both parties. And again, it's totally negotiable based on what you agree on with your broker. After broker fees, there are closing costs such as attorney fees. Again, that could vary. I've seen attorney fees as low as $600 for a settlement fee. I've seen them as high as $10,000. It really depends what the attorney is providing to you and what kind of work is being done and what was agreed on with your attorney. Then there's closing fees such as lien search, title search, doc stamps, estoppel fees. And really, to kind of sum it up, your broker fee will be anywhere between 5 to 6%, again, on average. And then your closing costs with attorneys will be anywhere on average between around 1%, give or take. So if you add them both, it could be anywhere from 5 to 7%, depending on what is negotiated with your attorneys and your brokers. So if you're selling for $2 million, make sure, or $3 million, or whatever the price is, make sure you account for, you're okay with, okay, what's 6%, what's 7%, what's 5% off of this price, and that's my take-home proceeds from the sale. And last, certainly not least, question number 5 from ChatGPT is, what agent should I use and what questions should I ask them? Choosing an agent is obviously extremely important in the sale of your home. It can make it a very pleasant one, or it can make it a very frustrating experience. So the first thing you want to look for in an agent is someone who focuses and farms the area where your house is located. Real estate is hyper-local, so you want to make sure if you're selling in Coconut Grove, you're dealing with someone who sells a lot in Coconut Grove, because they're going to know what the last comp was down the street. They're going to know if that comp had nicely finished interiors, if it was on a busy street, if there was a roof leak, or every detail about all the comps and the area and what's happening in the area, your broker should know, because this becomes very important when negotiating the best price to sell your home. Number 2 is someone who has a strong marketing strategy and online presence. Today, every buyer is shopping online, whether it's Zillow, whether it's YouTube, whether it's social media. Every buyer is looking online to start their home search. So you want someone who's going to expose your property to all these buyers that are looking in the area. Number 3, communication and transparency. You want someone who's a good communicator, a clear communicator. You want someone who's going to be responsive to you, and you want someone who's going to take a proactive approach in selling your home. You don't want the person who takes 24 hours to respond to you. Selling a property could be very time sensitive. So when an offer comes in, there's oftentimes that I'm writing contracts at 11 p.m. at night, at 2 in the morning, at 6 in the morning, whatever the case is. I know that we need to get it done when the contract comes in, and that's very, very imperative to getting a deal done. So you want someone who's responsive and someone who's gonna pick up the phone when someone's calling to go see that house. We never wanna miss a showing. So we always have, if I list a property, I'm either gonna be showing it at all times, and if I'm out of town, or if I can't make it, I'm at another appointment, someone will be covering from the team to show that property. The number 4 thing you should look for when hiring a broker is someone who is honest, who has integrity, and has a great reputation. You could, of course, go online, maybe do some Google reviews and do some research, but most importantly, I think you should ask maybe some fellow past clients, maybe some friends, family, how your experience was working with this particular broker. The last thing you want is someone who is only worried about the sale, who's only worried about making the commission. You want someone who's gonna protect your sale and do the right thing, even if it costs the sale and it costs the broker the commission. At the end of the day, they want your best interest in hand, whether it's selling or buying. Hiring someone who's gonna tell you the truth, and again, whether it's gonna cost them the sale or not, that's the person you wanna get behind. If someone's just talking to you with commission breath and you could smell it a mile away, that's a red flag, and you don't want to be working with this person. And the number 5 point when hiring a real estate professional to sell your home is hiring a professional. You don't want to hire your cousin's nephew just because they just got their license and you want to help them out, and maybe they're gonna charge only half the commission, because at the end of the day, that's only gonna cost you frustration, pain, and probably more money. You want to hire a true professional. A home is one of your biggest assets. If you're having surgery, you want the veteran surgeon who's done 100 surgeries on this particular part of the body, rather than the new person who hasn't done one surgery and has no experience whatsoever. As a broker, you don't want the new person who has no experience selling, no experience negotiating, no experience marketing. A home is a huge asset for most individuals, and you want to hire a professional, even if in theory it might cost more because the commission might be charged a little bit higher than the discount broker. The discount broker is always going to cost you more pain, more frustration, and at the end of the day, more money. So hiring a true professional is what you want to be looking for. So those are the top 5 questions that home sellers are asking ChatGPT today. If you have any more questions or didn't answer today, feel free to call me, text me, DM me. I'll be happy to answer them to you. As always, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, DM, follow, and stay tuned for more videos like this.